It all started when I was 9 and I fell out of a tree one afternoon while playing around at my childhood home. Later that night, my mom, my sister, and I were sitting down having dinner, and I let her know that I fell out of the tree. She told me that I was a tough cookie because I didn't hurt myself falling. I got up from the table and headed to the kitchen to wash my plate, and as I was about to put my plate on the table, there was a glow coming from the window. I looked and was shocked to see a glowing man. He was all gold, and it looked to me as though it was trying to open the window to get in. I stood there for a moment to see what it was doing, and suddenly he looked at me like I scared him, and he took off. I ran to my mom and told her what I had seen, but she had a puzzled look on her face. She thought I was crazy. She took me outside to show me there was no way that a glowing man was in the window unless it was 7 feet tall. I was surprised that she didn't believe me. A couple weeks later, we went to my grandma's house, and my mom was explaining the story to her, which upset me, so I got up and went outside to play in the middle of the story. I was outside playing with my cousin, who was also visiting, and after a while I'd forgotten that I was mad because we were having such a good time. The two of us were racing, and I had to stop and catch my breath, looking up into the sky as I do, and what I saw caught me off guard. It was the shape of a person, but it was all black looking right at me, so I yelled and pointed to get my cousin's attention. I waved at the entity who was looking at me from the clouds, and it waved back. I looked at my cousin to see if they'd seen the same thing, but he shook his head, no. I was floored because I'm the only one seeing this figure. I stood there questioning my sanity. Then my trance was broken by my mom asking if I was okay. At this point, my mom took me to the doctor to make sure there wasn't something wrong that was causing me to see these things, but all the tests came back perfectly normal. 25 years later, I moved into my first house and had a good feeling, so I was happy. But only a couple weeks later, odd things started to happen. Though I wasn't scared. My first experiences in the house were at night, when it would get real cold in certain parts of the house, but I brushed it off. Weeks later, I started to feel like somebody was watching me, though there was no one living in the house but me. Eventually, I explained what was going on to a neighbor of mine, and she suggested that I talk to whoever was in the house. Later that night, I took her advice, and I was surprised to find out there was a lady spirit in my house, and she was making her presence known. As time went on, I noticed she didn't like some of my cousins or friends, only males. She started to move or pick up things around the house while they were around. There was no question that she wanted them out. One time, I had a couple of people over and we were sitting in the living room talking. I was looking at the TV when suddenly everything got quiet. I didn't think much of it until my cousin hit me on the legs and started calling my name to turn and look. By the time I turned to look, everybody had a crazy look on their face. My friend says the cigarette in the ashtray floated up into the air, turned sideways, then dropped back down in the ashtray. I couldn't say anything for a minute, and some of my company got up and left. Later that night, I put my phone on the table so I could record the spirit in my home. I was surprised to catch an EVP and some pictures of the spirit. The last big event was when I was going out of town with a couple of friends. I went to my neighbor to inform her that I'd be gone and asked if she would watch my house. She told me not to worry and that she'd keep an eye on things. Later that night, she called me and said, "Don't be alarmed, but the lights on your house are coming on and off by themselves." I asked her if she thought someone had broken into my house, but she said no, that everything was good. When I got back in town, everybody that lives on the street had seen what was happening, and that a lady was even seen standing in my window. I was floored by what they were telling me. Unfortunately, people stopped coming to my house due to these paranormal events taking place. Some people simply aren't ready for things they cannot explain.